So, folks, welcome to this episode of Al's Joint. There's a lot going on in this country, as everybody knows. I have with me today Dennis Painter from Xenia, Ohio, who was a union representative for decades, who represented thousands of workers, bargained hundreds of contracts, and he lives in a red state and he lives in a red area. How are you today, Mr. Painter?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
That's good. So we're going to take the gloves off and we're going to get at it. So as we talked about in earlier episodes, it appears that Donald Trump and his boy toy, Elon Musk, are in the middle of a cat fight. So my thoughts are, hey, it was doomed to fail, their friendship, because you can't have two billionaires who are both egotistical maniacs working together. It's not going to work. Nothing just happened surprised me. I do think, though, my thoughts are that Elon Musk helped rig the elections, and that at some point that's either going to come out or they're going to have to be friends again. So, among other things, what are your thoughts on the conflict between Mr. Musk and Donald Trump?
Well, I always say there's no satisfying power and there's no satisfying greed. And I think that's what they're really in a power struggle. I think Elon Musk wanted to run the country behind the scenes. Donald Trump was being accused of following Musk's lead. And he didn't like that. So they ended up in the cat fight. And I'm not so sure that it's also is not something that is a diversion either. I mean, I think that you look at where we're headed, there's a lot of opposition to Doge and what Musk did and spearheaded and the effects on the American people. And so to get him away from Trump a little bit, I think this might be an effort to do that.
It's working. However, the problem is that both of them don't know how to stay off of Twitter or X or social media, right? So folks buy into that. And that's been Donald Trump's claim to fame, his ability to reach folks through social media. He's also going up against a person who owns a platform as well. So he can't use that as a bully pit and not have a response from Elon Musk immediately.
Well, I think it's absolutely true. All of this is leading us away from the real issues of what affects American people in a way. Because people focus on a cat fight between two billionaires. Who really cares? What I care about is what are my rights? Okay, how am I being treated? How am I being taxed? Okay, that's what I care about. How is my tax money being spent?
Why are folks following them blindly?
I think that what Trump has been good at and has been good at in his real estate business is telling people what they want to hear, telling people what they already think and making it okay. And what I think is going on now, he's made it okay for people to speak out and say, I'm a racist. I don't like you because of the color of your skin. He's telling people what they think and what they already feel. And he's saying it's okay. That's what I think is how he gets his support. The unfortunate thing, having been raised in the South, is in the South, you're raised with racism. You're taught, racism. If you're born into a quote unquote white family, you're taught racism. It's still going on today, and that's unfortunate. They hide behind a different curtain, and that curtain is making America great again, but it's not.
The funny thing is that slogan is not even original, right? Ronald Reagan used that. He stole Ronald Reagan's slogan. And the only thing he dropped off, I believe his was "Let's make America great again." You believe that MAGA is a cult?
I do. I believe they're an absolute cult, although they say it's make America great again. I believe it stands for manipulated America again. And it's an absolute cult. I mean, I think if you think you're going to change it, you're swimming upstream. I divide the country into the same way I did when I was organizing the union is there's thirds. There's a third that support one theory and a third that supports a different theory. And it's the third in the middle that you have to convince. I don't think we're ever going to convince the hardcore racist people in MAGA to be any different. Trump's telling them what they feel and they're vocalizing it. It's the educated people, the people in the middle, the people that have a moral compass. That's who we need to appeal to. They know that kicking women and children out of this country and calling them criminals is wrong. And it's a sense of right and wrong, because that 1/3 that's in the cult, they don't care about right and wrong. They care about being racist without saying they're racist. They care about putting other people down because it makes them feel important. How has America grasped onto the idea that these people coming from different countries are here because they want to rape and sell drugs? They're not. They're here to make a better living, just like the immigrants that came before them. People don't know what the Statue of Liberty stands for. They forgot. We welcomed immigrants. Immigrants made this country great. And the ones that I've seen are hard workers, okay? And they work in construction, in the roofing industry, in the food industry, in the hotel industry. They're hard workers. You know, you can't say that if you're racist. You know, you can't say they're hard workers. You got to say they're all criminals. And that's what Trump has said. And the racist people are hiding behind that curtain.
I tell folks that you can win a logical argument with a MAGA. That 1/3 you're talking about, you'll never be able to reach them. You're right. But the scary part is that middle third, some of those folks are racist too. They're smart enough to know, but they decide this is a better America for them. Here's the funny part. We have some people of color, right? And women who are minorities who fell for that too.
Yeah.
They voted against their best interests. And that to me is inexcusable.
Well, you know what I find is really sad, Al, is that these folks, they have kids and grandkids. This is what they're teaching them. They're teaching the next generation to hate. That was the legacy that, you know, parents left their kids in the South. And it's a horrible legacy.
A question, growing up, you said you grew up in the South. Growing up in the South, was your community integrated? Did you have blacks on your block? Did you grow up around people of color?
I did not grow up around them that I can remember. I did have, when I was about 5 or 6, a woman of color babysit me and my 3 brothers. My mother and my stepfather both worked. And being 5 or 6 years old, of course, you know, you don't know anything really. But I made the mistake one day of saying that she was black. And she looked at me and said, "Oh, yeah? Well, what color are you?" I said, "Well, I'm white." She didn't say nothing. She went and got a black piece of paper and a white piece of paper, and she laid them down. Then she said, "What color is this paper?" And I said, "Black." "What color is this?" And I said, "White." And she put her hand on the black paper. She said, "No, is my hand the same color as that paper?" And I said, "No." She said, "No, you put your hand on the white paper." And I did. And she said, "Is your hand the same color as that white piece of paper?" And I said, "No, it's a different color." And she said, "Remember this, we're all just different shades of the same color. I don't care what country we live in. I don't care what nationality we are. We're all different shades of the same color."
A powerful story. I have one. We represented the Ohio Turnpike, and we're sitting in this Flying J. We're having this union meeting, and I look down, and this kid has a water marker brown, and he's coloring part of his hand brown. And his mom said, "Well, what are you doing, bud?" And he said, "Oh, I'm making my color his color." And that was 30 years ago. And I remember like it was yesterday because it was like kids are just innocent kids, right? That we teach them to be racist. We teach them to hate. And that's unfortunate because if you let kids play together, you'll see what human beings are supposed to do, how they're supposed to interact. I know that Trump is funny on another note. He went kind of loony yesterday, right?
Again?
Yeah. Yesterday being Tuesday, because I know by the time this air it won't be yesterday anymore. But he's talking about this alligator Alcatraz. It looks like concentration camp, And it's just beds stacked on beds and cages, and they're put anybody there. They just put a immigrant there that was 75 years old. He died in their custody. And what did they say? People die in custody all the time. That's how we ease away from lose our humanity, right? We start accepting that stuff every day. He also released a commercial. He has this Trump fragrance, but here we got a president putting out cologne slash perfume during his term. It's a crazy time in America.
His agenda is that he's going to benefit more than anyone out of this whole deal. And that might be part of the problem between him and Elon Musk. I don't know. But Trump is out at every avenue to make money as being the president, even if it's illegal. And having to pay to have a meeting with him, and where's that money going? It's not going into pay the tax bill, that's for sure.
We're not in normal times, so he can pretty much do whatever he wants. And like he said, his cult followers will justify it. The most important thing for us to do, concentrate on the midterms, make sure that we're able to take the Senate and the House back and bring some normalcy back to this country before it's too late.
What is the issue that you think will do that?
I think a combination of things. And here's the key to me. We don't need to move any Trump voters over, right? We just need to tell somebody, and I'm going to say this, lazy, excuse-making SOBs to get the hell off the couch and get out and vote. It's not like we're even close to maximizing our turnout. To me, to be honest with you, I still think some shenanigans in this last election. But I think that if we get enough of our folks who sat this out to engage, then we'll have enough of a buffer, even if they're cheating, to overcome that. Because I've always thought in my life, if somebody complains about something, they've probably done it before. You don't tell folks you're cheating unless you cheated.
I think part of this, Al, is in the midterms, I agree with you. Well, we got to find a message to the people, put the responsibility on, I call them rhinos now, because even though they're conservatives, they've gone way beyond that and gave Trump free reign to break the law, free reign to break the Constitution. So they're no longer conservative Americans, Republicans. They're part of the corruption.
And this is the thing that kind of irks me, is that the media has taken our message and taken what the Republicans are saying. Democrats have always talked about keeping programs that benefit the middle class and the poor, right? That's always been our platform. If you look at the working class, is the reason why we have Social Security, reason why we have Medicare, right? Reason why we have pensions, reason why we have unions. And it's always been that way. And the Republicans over the years, or I shouldn't say the Republicans, let's say the conservatives, because there are conservatives that are out there that might even say they got a D in front of their name, but they're looking to keep what's their best interest. But over the years, they said, look, we can't beat them. They're winning because they're all in the same fight together. We got to divide them. So how do you divide them? You start picking out these issues that aren't really relevant on the national level and making them relevant. That's what I think has got Democrats saying, well, wait a minute, we're doing all these things. What message do we have to change? We've always been about the working class. We got to make sure we educate our own folks. To me, it's not about changing the message. It's about making sure people understand what the message has always been, what the struggle has always been about. You know more than anybody in the labor movement. We fought with folks side by side. It didn't matter if they were white, black, Hispanic, Asian. They were fighting the power to be, because the power to be said, I'm not giving you any more money. You're going to live in poverty till you die. And along comes a billionaire that tells folks, don't fight against me. Let me keep my money and give my buddies money. Fight against the person you're working next to.
And your neighbor, and your family.
And your neighbor, and your family, yes.
Yeah.
We all been in this struggle together for years, but forget all that. Fight against them for me. And that's what's happening. That's why I guess that's why you call it a cult, right? Because you don't care anymore.
Well, during this segment, you've talked about progressives and conservatives a number of times. And this is a message I'd say to conservatives. People call me a liberal. They call me a Democrat. They call me from a blue state, even though I live in a red state. All kinds. I don't care. You call me what you want to call me, okay? But conservatives, if you want to be conservative and you stand by that, then you go to your employer and say, I don't want any more paid vacation. I don't want any more paid holidays. I don't want any more paid sick time. I don't want any more health care. I'll take care of it myself because I'm a conservative. Okay. And see how many of them do that. It was the Democrats. It was the people that moved the agenda that benefited people is the reason we got all of those things. And it wasn't because a billionaire, a president, was trying to help us out. We had to fight him too.
And I hope folks do their research. There was a time where billionaires ran everything in this country. And what did we have? We had kids working in mines and steel mills, babies. They had 6, 7 years old because they could fit, going into dangerous situations. They had a 7-day work week. We forget about those times. There was no vacation time. There was no pension. You had to work until you died. This was after slavery, which is another issue, right? People don't do their research. They just think everything they got that they woke up was given to them. They didn't know people died for that. They died for the right to fight back against the boss. They died so that you wouldn't die at your workplace, that you could have Social Security, that you could have a pension, that you could have health insurance, that you can have vacation days, sick days. Then we're talking about the civil rights movement, same thing. People died for the right to vote.
Right.
Right, the right to have equality in a workplace. Not anymore, just equality.
If they don't get up and vote, we're headed back. You talk about history. I think we're headed back to where the Constitution was originally formed. The Constitution said we the people, but it did not mean all the people. It meant we the white people that are rich and property owners. It didn't mean we the people, white workers, okay? It didn't mean all the people. It didn't mean women. We all, as citizens, had to fight for rights, and that's why there's amendments to the Constitution, okay? So the Founding Fathers really didn't mean we the people, except for we the billionaires or we the rich people. And that's where the mindset still is, unfortunately. And we have to get out and vote to make sure that we don't go back in history.
Agreed. Well, Mr. Painter, I want to thank you again for taking time out to film this episode with me. As always, you've been in the struggle for working class people for decades and decades. I don't want to give you age, but I know you went to school with Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah. We were best buds. Okay?
Best buds. Well, folks, brings us to the end of another episode. I want to thank folks for taking the time to watch. I want to pay homage to Walter Scott of the Whispers. May he rest in peace. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and leave your comments below so we can know what you're thinking. Catch you next week on Al's Joint. Peace.
This segment of Al's Joint is brought to you by Pave the Way Parking.